Welcome to the Franklin Roosevelt Memorial. This memorial was dedicated in 1997 by President Bill Clinton. Now, this memorial cost $47 million. It's made out of South Dakota red granite. The first statue that you will see as you enter the memorial will be a statue of President Roosevelt sitting in the wheelchair. President Roosevelt contracted polio at the age of 39, but he did not let that deter him from being successful. After a lot of hard work, he became governor of New York, and later on he became president of the United States. Now, the design of his chair is on the back of the chair as you walk through the memorial. President Roosevelt very seldom was seen sitting in that wheelchair because photographers just wouldn't take a picture of him, or if they did, the Secret Service would kind of take away their photos. Now, there's a quote right behind the statue of President Roosevelt, and the quote is from his wife, and his wife said, "Franklin's illness gave him strength and courage he had not had before. He had to think out fundamentals of living and learn the greatest lessons of all, infinite patience and never-ending persistence." Also, this is written in Braille. The memorial is divided into 4 rooms. Each room represents one term of President Roosevelt's time in office. President Roosevelt is the only president ever elected for 4 terms. So the first term basically is about his first years in office. As you turn to the right, you will see the presidential seal. The first president to use the presidential seal was Rutherford B. Hayes. This generation of Americans has a rendezvous with destiny as one of the more than 20 quotes that are throughout this memorial. So as we go further into the first room, we will walk over the South Dakota red granite, and we will see a waterfall. Hopefully the water is working. As you can see, this is an open air memorial. It's 7.5 acres big. Now, lately we've had a problem with the water. Evidently, there's some equipment that the Park Service has a problem getting. So this is what it looks like when the water is actually on. Hopefully, when you do visit the city of Washington, we will have the water back on. This single drop represents the crash of the economy during the Great Depression. Now, this memorial was the first memorial built in Washington that was accessible for people with handicaps, people who needed ramps. There's very few stairs here. Now, this quote comes from FDR's first inaugural address. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Man and nature must work hand in hand. The throwing out of balance of resources of nature throws out balance also the lives of men. This was said January 24th, 1935. All right, we have left the first room, and now we're in the second. So the second room basically is about President Roosevelt's time in office during the Depression. This represents the farmers of America. Also, they represent the dust storms of the 1930s. During the Depression, over 750,000 farms were lost through bankruptcy. I see 1/3 of a nation ill-housed, ill-clad, ill-nourished. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much, it is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. This was done by January 20th, 1937. Over 13 million Americans were unemployed. People were hungry. People didn't have jobs. People didn't have homes. They hopped on trains to try to get from one part of America to another. They started towns called Hoovervilles. Basically, they were slums. They were named after President Hoover because he was president during the Depression. Started something called fireside chats, where he would speak to the American public through the radio. Now, President Roosevelt spoke in a language that people could understand. He used the 500 most commonly used terms in American language to speak to people. And one reason why he started talking to the people through the radio, because he said newspapers weren't reporting really what was going on. So he had to tell the American public the truth. The first fireside chat was of the banking crisis in 1933. The president took to the airwaves to explain to American people exactly what was going on. This proved to be very popular with Americans. This is a quote from a speech that was given in January of 1940. And this is from a speech in 1938. Now, right after the statues, there's an open room, and this depicts the 54 New Deal programs that are represented in 5 relief panels in the memorial. And there's also 5 bronze cylinders with braille and other elements to help people with disabilities be able to read or feel what's on the cylinders and also what's on the panels. So the cylinders actually correspond with the panels. So if you go up to the panel and you touch the panel and you feel it, you can go to a corresponding cylinder and see what the panel would be like if it was inverted. Sometimes it takes people quite a while to figure out exactly how this works, but we're going to get a little closer to the panel so you can see. So once again, the panels and the cylinders correspond with each other. So here's a closer look at one of the cylinders. Now this is a quote from a speech March 21st, 1933. President Roosevelt was trying to put people to work. So he had people build buildings for the government, roads, just put them to work because he felt if people had money in the pocket, they would spend it and that would stimulate the economy. He also started the Tennessee Valley Authority. These multiple falls represent the Tennessee Valley Authority's dam building projects. The third room, or his third term, basically depicts President Roosevelt's time in office during World War II. It talks about how much he hated war. He had seen war, he hated war. And this is what it looks like as you walk from the northern part of the memorial to the southern part of the memorial. And these rocks represent dissension, war, hate. And in this, it says, "I hate war." President Roosevelt didn't like war at all. And you will see a quote from him that says, "I have seen war. I have seen war on land and sea. I have seen blood running from the wounded. I have seen the dead in the mud. I have seen cities destroyed. I have seen children starving. I have seen agony of mothers and wives. I hate war." August 14th, 1936. And once again, we'll go back to these boulders because they depict the war effort, or how much Roosevelt hated war. Remember, 400,000 Americans were killed in World War II. Then we have these falls that represent the chaos of war. Right next to this is statement about how much he hated war. Faith that the future generations will know here, in the middle of the 20th century, there came a time when men of goodwill will find a way to unite and produce and fight to destroy the forces of ignorance, intolerance, and slavery and war. February 12, 1943. This little dog's name is actually Murray the Outlaw of Fowler Hill. That's how he got the nickname Fowler. Now, as you look at the statue of President Roosevelt, you can see that perhaps he's not feeling well. He died shortly after the beginning of his fourth term. Fourth term. And this relief that you see is of the funeral procession of President Roosevelt. Remember, there's some young people, the only president they had ever known was Franklin Roosevelt, a four-term president. Eleanor Roosevelt is the first lady to be in a memorial. She's also the first lady to ride in an airplane. She was the first lady to have weekly press conferences. She traveled throughout the United States to see how things were going and reported back to her husband. And she was the first delegate from the United States to the United Nations. and she also was the niece of Theodore Roosevelt. This waterfall represents some of the accomplishments of FDR's time in office: Social Security, GI Bill, TVA. One of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's more famous speeches, the Four Freedoms speech, January 6, 1941. President Roosevelt died the day before he was supposed to give this speech. And this is a quote from that speech.